And now we're continuing in Torah Or. And we said that there's two types of consciousness and awareness of the creator of the universe. And we have to stress that this is really the essence of what man is consciousness, to be aware of something greater than himself. But not only to be aware, also to be emotional. So that's one of the big differences between an animal and a human being. And as we see from the animals that it's possible to have consciousness, to be aware, but not to know what you're aware of. For instance, an animal, a cow, an ox. An ox is aware that there's somebody, a driver on the wagon, but he doesn't know what it is. He doesn't get emotional about his owner. Sometimes dogs get emotional because that's their nature. It's not because they think about it or whatever. That's it. Their nature is they like to go in packs, right? The horses also, they go in herds. So they have this nature that they go after leaders. So they can get excited about a dog can get excited. But it's his nature. It's not his intellect, not going against his nature. A human being can go against his nature. The nature of a human being is that to be separate, to be egotistical, to do what he wants to, right? To do what he wants to. Some human beings, it's true, they love having leaders and they love having someone to tell them what to do. But only something that they can see that there's an immediate leader. To be enthusiastic about God and to say that God is my leader and God is going to tell me what to do, this people don't like. People want something that they can see. And so, for instance, you have the religions. Everybody knows they're going to die, right? People, they figure out. They go to a funeral and they figure out one day I'm going to be there. So they wonder about what's going to be. So to benefit themselves, so they have religions. But that's not yet recognizing God. That's just recognizing the mystery of life. So how do we deal with this uncomfortable fact that people die? So the unseen future. How do we assure our future? You wear a rabbit's foot, you put a 4-leaf clover. The people that go to church, they go to this synagogue, they go to this. Those are things which are according to nature. That's called an animal. That's called people that they can act like animals because they just go according to their nature. But there are certain individuals, Jews, that they go above their nature. They go above their nature. They don't think about themselves at all. They think about God. God is so real to them that they're willing to do anything for God, give their life, no problem, their time, their money, anything for God. That's called loving God, but called meodecha. They get emotional about God, and what they don't see anything. They don't know anything. They're not talking about God is going to save them after they die or whatever. They don't care. Their whole essence is just this very moment. They're being enlivened by God as they just want to do what God wants them to do. That's called a real human being. That was Adam, the first man that was created. His whole essence was just to serve God all the time, constantly. And there was this pleasure, right? Pleasure. A person that has a really good job, that he really enjoys the job. If he really enjoys the job, there's nothing better. He dreads the day that he's going to go and on retirement, because he just is doing his job. He just feels he's getting something done. There's a reason to wake up in the morning. There's a reason that he lives. The same thing, really, every human being is that way. Every human being, every moment is being created by God, and we have a tremendous job. But who feels this? Ideally, the Jewish people are supposed to feel it. And they're supposed to pass it to the rest of the world. That's why it says in the days of the Moshiach, all of the other religions will be dropped, because all the other religions are selfishness. Just, what am I going to get? I'm going to go to heaven. I'm going to, So the idea and among the Jewish people also don't really feel it. That's the whole point here, feeling. They don't really feel this oneness of God. They don't feel that God is creating everything all the time, constantly. And he's creating everything for a purpose. They don't feel that. So that's called the seed of animal, zera behema. And that's going to be the job of Moses. The job of Moses is that he's going to nourish the soul. And that's called the Redeemer. That's why we're waiting for Moshiach. Moshiach is going to be a person that is going to make everybody feel the truth that God is creating us and God loves us and God will provide. And when we do that, there'll be a reciprocal relationship. Then we'll be able to receive God's blessings. But in the meantime, we're like animals, and we're not acting or feeling or talking or thinking what we're supposed to, right? Because the fact is, we're not animals. We're human beings, and especially the Jews, right? They're not animals. They're Jews. Okay, so let's see. Are we sharing? Yeah, we are sharing. How do I get my pointer here? And therefore, this level of a true man, the seed of man, these are neshamas, these are souls, these are the big tzaddikim. They have this level of da'at. Da'at means feeling, certainty, awareness, right? Like we said yesterday, like every human being knows that he exists. He, she, every human being, no doubt about it, you know that you exist. That same that same attachment, reality, that's not really called true dot, because the fact is that we are, like we said 1,000 times, we're just creations and we don't feel it. We don't feel the real truth. That's called dot, feeling. Like people, that take drugs, or people that go to sleep. Taking drugs is sort of like a sleep state. Even the uppers and the down. What do you feel? You feel the drug. You feel reality? Sure. I feel the drug. I feel the guy feels high. He feels whatever. He feels, but that's not really reality. You're feeling a false reality. The drug is presenting a false reality. Well, when a person stops taking a drug, it's also not real reality that it's feeling, even though that it's more practical and more, say, beneficial to the world and less egotistical. Drugs are like super egotistical, right? A person just feels himself, what his feeling that he feels. In fact, all these drugs, the opiates and things like that, they just play on that a person is an egotist and wants to feel himself more. It just confuses the person's self. Well, the essence of what says the Rebbe is, even a person when he's not taking drugs, but he still doesn't really feel the truth. The truth is the feeling of the oneness of the Creator all the time, and that how important we are to the Creator. That's called dat. The big tzaddikim, they're called the seed of man. They have dat. Shehu mamshich gilei chachma. This draws down revealed. Chachma means a consciousness, and a riyah should be born in it. You actually can see the truth. That you can come to the level of, like my flesh, from my flesh, I can see God. In other words, you see yourself, you feel yourself, and you feel that God is more real than yourself. God is creating me. I'm just a creation. You not just, in other words, seeing it, feeling it, being for sure. Which is not the case, because if a person does not have this level of dat, the Ashkenazic pronunciation is das. If a person does not have this feeling, this true awareness of the Creator, a mamshich gilui of chachma, which draws down the revelation of this chachma, of this consciousness of God, as hurak bebechinas shemia. then it's not seeing, it's just like hearing. V'havana levad, and understanding alone. Mibechinat bina, from the level of bina, hamakoner nebabria, which is in the world of bria. Okay, what does this mean? It's very common. The world, there's a multi-trillion dollar, quadrillion dollar business, the movie industry, right? The advertising industry, even books. A person reads and he imagines. You look at the movie, oh, you're all excited, you're biting your nails at what's going to happen. He's tied to the railroad tracks and the train is coming. What's going to be? And you're thinking, oh, and he's such a good person. I hope nothing happens. The whole thing is just a big bluff. First of all, what you see is not really reality. You just see a bunch of pictures on a screen or whatever. And not only that, even if it was real, these people are just actors. They're not really real. It's not really happening. So it's an imagination of an imagination, but nevertheless, you get excited about it. Even someone telling a story, right? Like I say in a book, someone tells about how it was when he was in World War II and he was fighting and what happened. And you get all excited about the story. But he was there, you weren't there. But nevertheless, your power of imagination can get you excited about it. Well, the same thing about God. You can learn about God, you can understand God, you can pray. When we're in the prayers, Jewish prayers are designed to get a person emotional. That's supposed to be the idea of prayer. Not that you just stand there and you praise the Lord and you ask God for presence. You love God. You feel. That's what it's supposed to be. Well, usually what it is it's this imagination. In other words, you imagine in your mind that God exists, which is a good thing. Some people, that's all they can do. That's all that they can do. They can't really feel God. That's 99.9999% of all the Jews. In fact, there could be just one person in the generation that really feels it. How can, therefore, these people, that their connection with God is only in their imagination, is only in their understanding, but not in feeling. It's just what they hear, so to speak. This is called Zera Behema. This is called the seed of animal. Now, the Rebbe is not telling us this in order to make us feel bad. You're going to see that in every generation there has to be a Moses that allows us to feel the truth. Even though even though that an animal, he doesn't really understand anything. Animals, we're with people are like an animal. Animals have the power of imagination, right? You ever hear the Pavlov's dog experiment? Right? Pavlov was a famous, whatever it was, a behaviorist or something in Russia. I think Russia, right? And he was he decided he was going to do an experiment, and he would give dogs food to eat, and he had a way of measuring their salivation, this saliva coming in, because before a person eats, so he salivates, right? The God made it that way that people, before they eat, there's saliva that comes into your mouth. It helps digest the food, whatever it does. So they brought food to the animal, just put it in front of dogs. They took dogs and they had this thing in their mouth that measured the saliva, and they just put the food in front of them. And they saw they just put the food in front of them. The dog already started salivating. And then every time he brought the food, he rang a bell. And this he did for, I don't know, a week or a month, whatever. Every time they just set the food down, right before they allowed the dog to eat the food, the dog would see the food, he would start salivating, but as soon as they put the food down, they would ring this bell. Ding, 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 ding. And this they did for about a month. Put the food, ding, 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 ding. Then they tried just to ring the bell. No food. They ring the bell, ding, 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 ding. The dog starts salivating. From this, they can extrapolate that that's what human beings are. They're just imagination. And if you can control the situation, you control the imagination, you control the stimulus, then you can control the reaction. And that's what a human being is. Well, that's what an animal is. That's true. That's what an animal is. It's not what a human being is. But that certainly is what an animal is. And people have animal traits also. They certainly do. But that's not the humanity of a human is not aroused by behavior and surrounding, etc. But sometimes the animal aspect of a person is good. The point is that animals also have koach madama. Animals do also have imagination. And also human beings can also have understanding and the contemplation in God. If it's only in a way of just hearing, in other words, understanding, not seeing God, but hearing, understanding. It's just like an imagination. It says in the beginning, when God created man, he says, "B'tzalmenu kidmutenu." Let us create man in our image and in our form. I don't translate however you want. In our form, in our image. Anyway, tzalmenu, it says in our tzalmenu, in our form, kidmutenu, and in our image. And this it says, that's what it means, that all humanity is like a big dream. It says when Moshiach comes, then we'll realize that our whole entire lives, from the beginning to the end, was just a big dream. People were dreaming. What does it mean, a dream? What's a dream? A dream is that you have emotions. You roll around in your sleep, and you talk in your sleep, and you're happy, you laugh in your sleep, you cry in your sleep, right? But really, the fact of the matter is, it was a big dream. Now, the dream was a real dream. It was a dream. In other words, as far as being a dream, it was real, right? Dream-wise, it was a real dream, but it wasn't real reality, right? It was a copy of reality. It was a dream state. So it says also God creates people, intentionally creates people, and that's like I said, 99.999% of all humanity, even the Jewish people, that their whole, at best, what they can do is imagine what God is. That's what it says. We were like dreamers, just like in a dream. All there is just the power of imagination alone. It says, look in another place, it says over there, when God said, let us make man in our our image, our form. This is the aspect of the seed of man, seeing God. But this level of dat that joins chachma and bina, in other words, seeing God and understanding God, this is called the upper dat, the upper awareness of God. And there's also dat tachton, there's also lower awareness of God, which this is the attachment of your mind to your emotions. The inside of the emotions. Look later on, Esav Besarecha. Okay, we'll talk about this. We'll talk about this. Essentially, what it means is like this: man creates, God creates man, right? So God wants man to be in his image. What does it mean? God wants man to be in his image. That man can think that he's God. That man has the same image as God, just like God feels there's nothing before me, as also man feels there's nothing before me. Here I am. I'm reality. Everything is around me. And man can also create. He can create false ideas. He can create false things, things from nothing. He can create. It's not really creation. Creation means something from nothing, and we have no idea what nothing is. But nevertheless, man can make the mistake and think that he is God. Not that he's in the image of God, that he is God. Okay, what are we supposed to do if this is the dominant feeling of man? The dominant feeling of man is that man feels that there's no other God there's no other reality except for me. I'm the reality. This is what's called Zera Behema. This is what are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? It says, well, that's why we're here. We're here in order to start to appreciate God. And when you start to appreciate God, then your whole outlook on life is different. I mean, if everybody would really appreciate God, then the world would be very, very dynamic. It would be very dynamic. I don't know if people would even sleep. It would just be dynamic, and everyone would be just happy and trying to see the good in everyone and meeting all the challenges of life, right, with joy, and the difficulties of life and the obstacles to overcome. There would be no depression and no aggression and no whatever it is, the addictions like that. Human beings would realize that they're that they are very, very tremendously important. They're created in the image of God. That's if they realize that there's such a thing as God. But if not, then people think that they're everything, and it's a lie. People live in a lie. They live in a lie because of that lie, so they can get all depressed and all the reject and commit suicide. Hashem Yishmor, the worst things, take drugs and terrible things because they're living in this mistaken life, and eventually they bump into reality and they can't deal with it. they, they won't let God take over anything in their life. They think they have to control everything, or everything has to be exactly the way they want to. So it says that's because people live in false imaginations, but we can get out of it. We can get out of it. A person can think about God. He can think about what it means, the creator. If he thinks properly, then he can take it to heart. He can get emotional about it. And that's the idea of dat. Dat means to connect to reality. So he says there's two types of reality, two types of connections. There's connection of chachma and bina. Chachma means seeing God, seeing really true, and dat, bina is understanding. And then there's another, which is the intellect, connecting it to the emotions, so you get excited. These are things that animals cannot do. Animals cannot be aware of God in an intellectual way. It's a natural way. But they just have their nature. They're not aware of God. They're just aware of nature. And also to get excited about God, to change, instead of getting excited about ourselves, we get excited about what God wants us to get excited about. So if you win the lottery, right, you win $100 million in the lottery, wonderful thing. But what's a person supposed to think about first thing? What does God want me to do with this money? What should I do? Maybe I should build a hospital with it, right? Maybe I should give money to the poor. Maybe I should give it to medicine. Maybe I should, right? But that's your thoughts are, what does God want? Right? Not, wow, how many bottles of beer can I buy? And what do I want? Okay, meanwhile, we're stuck. We are animals and we can't see God and we can't really have that feel God. We can't do, we're animals. That's what we are. We're animals. That's Moshe Rabbeinu. That's why we have in every generation, there has to be a Moses. Moshe Rabbeinu, all of a shalom, Kol Gadol, has this big power. Moshe Rabbeinu is a special human being. Like Adam was a special human being. His power was great. Shemamshech u'mashpia dat, that he gives this awareness of God to the Jewish people. In other words, the thing of Moshe was the Torah. He makes the Torah real. Every single law of the Torah becomes an amazing connection to the creator of the universe. Every detail of every law becomes a living thing that you feel God, because the only way really to feel godliness is through the Torah. That's the only way. That's the only way. You can get hints of God through nature and things like that, but only through the Torah. That's the terrible, terrible mistake that people can make to other religions, because they try to feel God without the Torah. And you can't do it. That's the 7 Noahide commandments. You can't do it. Says that's this level of dot. Moses, every generation there's a Moses, and he draws this dot into the Jewish people through the Torah. Even into these people that they're called the seed of animal. That they'll have a feeling of godliness. Now this begins with Moses. He has this feeling. He tries to bring it to the Jewish people. When he succeeds in the Jewish people then can bring it to the whole entire world. Yakiru v'yiru kol yeshvei teva. We say it 3 times in a day in our Aleinu prayer, that the whole world should be aware of God. And like I said so many times, I quoted the Rambam, the whole world will drop all the religions. Now, what's wrong with religions? Religions, I mean, there's billions of people that they find comfort in life and guidance in life through religion. Right? That's the only thing that keeps them from doing bad, and it's the only thing that keeps them positive. They have faith. Right? Why should they drop all the religions? Says the reason is very simple, because the religions are very nice. They have a certain idea, but the ideas that they have of God are very confused, and it's without the Torah. In other words, it's really insufficient to deal with reality. When Moshiach reveals godliness, then he's going to reveal the real truth in the whole creation. That's what it means. People will feel godliness. Liot v'yadat hayom, the people will, like it says, v'yadat hayom heshevot elevecha. This is what the Tanya is based on, the book the Tanya. You should take it to your heart. Da et Elokei avicha. You should know, in other words, feel the God of your fathers. Key, because let's skip this. It says that's the level of connecting between Chochmah and Bina. It says, like we said up here. Key, because Moshe Rabbeinu Olav Shalom, because Moses, our teacher above upon him peace, Nikra is called Raya Mehemna. He's called the faithful shepherd. Moshe is the shepherd of the Jewish people. The Jewish people are like sheep, and Moses is the shepherd of the Jewish people. He's the faithful shepherd. Faithful shepherd means you can rely on him, right? He's faithful, never stops one moment. Faithful shepherd. But there's the explanation of the Zohar. The Zohar says that he is the shepherd, a shepherd of sheep. What does he give them? He grazes the sheep. He grazes the sheep and gives them grass to eat or whatever it is. Well, Moses gives the Jewish people, he grazes them, what? Not grass or grains or whatever it is, the weeds. He grazes them. What does he feed them? Mehemna, faith. He feeds the Jewish people faith in God, or more exactly, he feeds the faith of the Jewish people. Every Jewish Jew believes in God. No exception. Every Jew down deep believes in God. Even if he's not aware of it, even if he's not aware that he's Jewish. But down there dormant is this faith in God. The problem is either it's asleep or it's very weak. And Moses, he's Raya Mehemna, he grazes the faith of the Jews. He takes the faith of the Jews out to graze, to eat. He feeds it. That Moses is the one and unique of the 7 shepherds of the Jewish people, Sharoah Omafarnas and Neshamas Israel, that he is one of them that feeds the Jewish people. What does he feed them? Bashpaoto, by his influence on them, Moachadat, the awareness of this connection to God. Shazeo, that's what it means, Raya Mehemna. What does it mean that he's the faithful shepherd, that he's the shepherd of faith? Shemafarneset Amuna, that he feeds the faith which is found in every Jew. Therefore, Hugo Rishon, he is the first redeemer. V'goel Acharon, and he is called the last redeemer. Moshe Rabbeinu is going to be the last redeemer. Now, Moses, he came from the tribe of Levi, right? His father was Levi, right? Levi, the grandfather was Levi. So he was not, and the Moshiach has to come from the tribe of Judah, Yehuda. King David, it says, was the first Moshiach. The Rambam says he's the first Moshiach, and the last Moshiach will be Moshiach ben David. So what does it mean that the Rambam, that Moshe will be the last redeemer? So first of all, I saw in one book, in a book called Taf Reish Ayin Vav, the Maimorim from the 5th Rebbe of Chabad, the Mashiach, he will be the one, David, he will be the one that gathers the Jews and builds the temple and gathers the Jews. And Moses is going to be he'll be the responsible for the raising of the dead. That's what it says over there. Okay, but here we're going to learn a little bit different. It says that Moses is the first redeemer, and he's going to be the last redeemer. So what does it mean, the first redeemer? He took the Jews out of Egypt, right? He's the first redeemer. And the last redeemer means he'll have something to do with gathering the Jews to Israel. I mean, basically, it's a sort of a political thing. Well, it says, no, that's not the point. That's true. That's true. It is true. And when the Jews left Egypt, they definitely became a political entity. They were the Jewish nation, Israel. But that's not the whole thing of the Jewish people. The Jewish people is not a nation. Jewish people is not a nation. And especially, it's not a secular nation. The Jewish people is God's nation. Okay, but that's not the main thing. What does it mean, God's nation? What does it mean? Redemption. Redemption means a state, a changing of feeling. What you feel is reality. Perish goel rishon shu mashpil lehem dat. He gives them dat beitchalat adibur in the beginning of his speech. I want to see her take a little break, which reminds me of something. When I was young, I mean, I wasn't religious all my life. So when there was, we used to watch television, right? Television came out in America in like the 50s, right? So there was a program called Superman. It's starring Steve Reeves, Superman. And Superman used to break through walls and everything. Now, if you watch, the past episodes of Superman, if you watch them, they have videos of it. You realize how, primitive the whole thing was, but still it was really, bursting through walls. You saw that the bricks were just made of cardboard. Good. There's one that stands out in my mind. I don't remember any of them. One stands out in my mind. When I saw this, I remember I don't know how old I was, 8 years old, 10 years old. And I remember I saw this and it just stuck in my mind. It just was something that really just amazed me. There were a few things in my life that really, in my youth, and that there were people that Superman heard that they were trapped in a dungeon. They were kidnapped, and they were put in a dungeon. There were all these 5-10 people, whatever. And so Superman's going to go there, and the music starts playing. Every time Superman does something, the music starts playing. He's flying through the air. And then he bursts through the wall with his chest, right? Comes and bursts through the wall with his chest. Boom. They show the bricks falling on. And he's into the prison. You see, it's this dingy room with a little window that has bars on it. And the people are just they're chained. They're in chains. They say, "Oh, Superman, you have come to save us. We've given up hope. You came to save us." And the music stops. And they say, "Oh, Superman, you come to save us." And he says, "Yes, let us go." And they say, "No, we are in chains. We are in chains." So Superman looks at the chains. He says, "But these are just paper. They're paper." And he looks at this and looks at the he looks at the camera and he says, "These people have been hypnotized." And he turns to them and he says, "You've been hypnotized. You can change." They say, "No, Superman, we can't. We're in chains." So the music starts again. And he breaks the paper chains of these people. They couldn't break out. And then he grabs a hold of all of them somehow or other, and he whisks them through this hole that he had made in the wall and takes them out. But I thought to myself, wow, that's, you had to have Superman in order to break paper chains. Hypnotize. I never heard the term before. Hypnotize. The person could be hypnotized. That's it. That's all I remember. Well, this is what's talking about here. The Rebbe wants to say all mankind is hypnotized, and they think that they can't break out. And you have to have Moshe to come and save them, right? Save them. Really, the only thing that's there is just their miscomprehension, if there's such a word, of what the world is, right? That they've been confused. They've been hypnotized by the world. And so people don't see that God is really creating us, and we don't feel it. That's the main thing. We don't see and we don't feel that God is creating us. So that's the idea of Moshe. Every Jew knows inside of himself, deep down, that we're being hypnotized. They know what reality is. They know it, but they can't break out. So therefore, you have to have Moses that comes, so the music starts playing, and all of a sudden, Moshiach will come and break us out. That's what Chassidut is. Chassidut is telling us that that our chains are paper. We can break out. And therefore, who Goel Rishon, Moses, it says he's the first redeemer and the last redeemer. What does it mean? He's the first redeemer. He gave the Jewish people when they came out of Egypt, he gave the Jewish people awareness of God. Shebetchilas dibur shelo, when God spoke to Moshe, what did he say? Take the Jewish people, the Yadatem, and they will know, the Jewish people will know, Ki ani Hashem, that I'm God. That then God said to Moses, and Egypt will know that I'm God. Kimi koerim kasiv, it says, V'yamena am. First of all, it says by the Jewish people that Moses came and he said, "I'm going to take you out," and he showed them the signs that he had, right? Turned the stick to a snake and everything. And it says the people believed. At first they just believed. And then afterwards, after they saw this and they went to Mount Sinai, so he made the Jewish people really see God. That's what happened at Mount Sinai. And it happened also when the Yam Suf split, the splitting of the sea. People saw, they felt the creator that's creating them. They felt and they were certain, they knew the world is just this amazing, miraculous, precious miracle that God is making all the time. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu did. And he made the Jewish people realize who they are. Of course, it didn't last long. Moses, they thought 40 days later, they worshiped the golden calf. But Moses will be also the last redeemer. What does it mean, the last redeemer? Liot bechinat mala ha'oretz dea. He will fill the whole world with the awareness of God. Kikulam yadu, because everyone will know oti, me. Everyone will know God. Hainu liot adat gamba bechinas soviv ka'omim, because this knowledge, awareness of God will be what's called aspect of surrounding all the worlds. The aspect of God which surrounds all the worlds will be comprehended by everyone and felt. Which is not the case when the Jews left Egypt, even though there was drawn down to them this awareness that I am God. Nevertheless, it was not in such a high level of awareness. Like it says before, that's why they could forget it. That's why it was changing. And they could worship the golden calf. That's what it means. What it says in our prayers, we say, "V'natati esev b'sarecha livntecha." It's part of the Shema Yisrael, and I will give the what is it, grain, grasses in your field for your animals. Moses is saying this: if you do my commandments, I will give the grasses to their animals. Of course, this is God speaking through Moshe's mouth, but it's through Moshe's mouth. Moshe is saying, I will give you these Esav, grasses and vegetation. What is Esav? Esav, he's talking to the Jewish people. You're all a bunch of animals. You don't understand what God is. And I'm going to give you Esav. I'm going to give you vegetation. What does this mean? What type of vegetation is going to make people aware of God? We're not talking about taking drugs or something. No. Esav, this is dat. This is the awareness of God. How do we forget that from the word Esav? Shu Shem Ab, this is one of the names of God of 72 letters, and the shin in the middle of the word. That's what it says. The name Ab is in Chachma. There's 4 names of God. Gematrias, there's Ab, Sag, Man, Ban. And now is not the time to talk about this. Nevertheless, this is awareness of God from the level of Chachma. Also, the word Chachma is the numerical value of Ab with it is 73. Shenimshach b'sadecha, this will be drawn down into your field. What is the field? This is what's called Chakal Tafuchin to Kedishin. This is the aspect of Malchut, the lowest aspect of godliness will come down for your animal, which is Zera Behema. This awareness of God, Moshe will bring to every person, and he's bringing it now. That's what Chassidut is. That's what the Rebbe is. That's why they say the Rebbe is the Mashiach. Even the angels, Daled Machanot Shechina, what's called the 4 camps of God's presence, the 4 camps of godliness, they're also called animals. So don't feel bad. The angels are called animals also. The face of the lion, the face of the ox. Even though they have recognition in God, and they're standing constantly negated to God, but nevertheless they're called animals. Why? Because their understanding is only in the lowest aspect of God, that from it comes all their life. But the mahut of atzmuta, but the essence of godliness, all the angels that they're screaming up in heaven and they're burning up to God, it's called that there's the 4 faces of the angels, the 4 faces of these angels that have 4 faces under the chariot of God, the face of the lion and the face of the eagle and the face of the ox and the face of the man. They're all aware of God, but they're only aware of a low aspect of God, the aspect of God that creates the world, because there's no thought even of the angels that can grasp God at all. Bechinas Malchus, this is the level of Malchut. This is called God's name. So they can only be aware of what's called God's name. Like the name of a person, which is not relevant to his essence. So it says, nowadays, and also the Jews, when they left Egypt, they've got an awareness only what's called of God's name. Only of God's name. When the angels get this, they're all screaming and burning up to God. Therefore, but nevertheless, the angels are only called because they get this only low level of God's awareness, what's called God's malchut, his lowest level. Therefore, they're called animals, just like we are. Because they don't get a grasping of God's essence. And that's what Moshe, that's what the Moshiach will bring to us in the future redemption, an awareness of who we really are. We're being created. And therefore, Omen Kadosh. Therefore, the angels, when they feel this godliness, they say, Kadosh, God is holy. They go berserk. Shehu Bechinas Kadosh Umuvdallah. It's totally separate from them. Oi! Holiness, holiness. Lochach, therefore, Gam Aleim Ne'amar, therefore, even on them it says, Natati Esev B'Sarecha Livamtecha. Also to the angels it says, God says, I am giving the grain, the vegetation of the field to your animals. This is talking about to the Jewish people. Eventually, it's talking about the whole entire world. And it's even talking to the angels who have an awareness of God. But nevertheless, their awareness of God is on a very low level of God. Therefore, in other words, what's the low level of God? That God creates the world. That's a low level of God. A higher level of God, the essence of God comes from the Torah. It says these angels, they only have this awareness of the lower aspect of God. And the Jews don't even have that. That's why we're all lumped into the same category, though, as called animals. And therefore, also it says, this drawing down of this dot, this feeling and awareness of God that the angels get when they say, Kadosh, 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 holy, holy, holy. Because God, mitzarech l'shir, God doesn't need their songs and their praises. Ella, but, so what are they praising God for? By means, when they say Kadosh, they draw down hamshachat adat. They draw down this big awareness of God. It's like a dog barks, either wakes you up, hey, you give him a cookie or something, right? A cookie. And so they're doing it for themselves. This gives them an awareness of reality. When they yell out, God is holy, holy, right? This draws down to them an awareness of the Creator, opens them up. Because kadosh with a vav is kadosh. Kadosh means removed, but the vav shows that it's being drawn down. That's what's called chachmi eloah, the upper wisdom of the upper awareness of God, calling seeing God. Or inami, or not just the level of chachma, but also this level of the crown of God. That's what's called the upper awareness of God. But this we see is okay. So that's what the angels draw down when they say holy, holy. They're drawing down this awareness of God. And that's what Moses brings to us. Moses brings to us an even higher awareness that the angels are going to get. And that's why it says that in the future, Moses, it says, is going to bring the raising of the dead. That's why it says in this book, Samach Vav, the raising of the dead is much higher than the angels. It says it's much higher than even the souls. The souls will come from the upper levels of heaven into this physical world, into bodies. Right? What for? Who knows? I have absolutely no, I don't know what heaven means or what the angels are screaming about. Right? We read about it over here. What's the raising of the dead? It says, Ayin lo ra'ata Elokim zulat chasela. There's no possible way that any human being can possibly, it's not the thing that could be understood, the raising of the dead. And that's essentially what Moses draws down to the Jewish people. That's the amazingness of Moses and the Moses of every generation, the Moshe of every generation. That's the Rebbe's of Chabad. As we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. Now we'll learn a Sikha of the Rebbe. I want to take just a short break.